Hi guys, today I have another great Billy Preston keyboard solo for you, from the Beatles song Don't Let Me Down. Let's see what we can learn from this. A great question to ask ourselves when we analyze music is, if I were faced with the same musical challenge, what would I do? In this case, how would I approach soloing over this chord progression in this stylistic context? Well, the context is, I'm recording a song with the Beatles, so totally no pressure there. And the chord progression is this: 2 bars of F sharp minor, followed by 2 bars of E major, and that repeats. So the solo is a total of 8 bars long. And we're in the key of E major. Before we look at what Billy played, take a second and ask yourself what you would play over this. What notes would you use as raw material? Would you think in terms of scales, and if yes, would you try and find a specific scale to go with each chord? This is called chord scale improvisation. Or would you choose a single scale to play over the whole progression? This is called key center improvisation. And which scale or scales do you think would work best? I know from experience that in pop music, key center improvisation is much more common than chord scale improvisation. The latter is much more appropriate for jazz music, for example. So personally, I would look for a single scale or tonality to base my melodies on. The most popular choices for key center improvisation are either the tonic major or minor scale, the Dorian or Mixolydian modes, or a blues or pentatonic scale, depending on the style and the chords involved. So now let's see what the genius of Billy Preston has to say about all this. I'll play the whole solo first and then we'll talk about it. Let's talk high level first. If I take all the notes in the solo and arrange them into a scale, here's what I get. What does that look like? A C-sharp blues scale. That's right, every single note in the entire solo is from the C-sharp blues scale. I'm not counting the notes C and D that are also played because I believe that was accidental, so I'm excluding them from the analysis. So what is the C-sharp blues scale doing in a song that's in the key of E and doesn't contain a single C-sharp chord? Well, it turns out that in blues and blues-flavored music, like rock and roll for example, there's 2 different blues scales that are used all the time. The one built on the tonic, which is what everybody uses, in this case that would be an E blues scale, but also the one built on the 6th degree of the scale, which in this case is C-sharp. There's a fancy music professor term for this, the sub-mediant blues scale. Mediant refers to a third interval, and sub means below, as in submarine. See what I did there? So sub-mediant means a third below the root, and in many situations this sub-mediant blues scale actually works better than the tonic one. This song is a textbook example of that. Here, playing the E blues scale would totally sound out of place. It's just too dissonant for the vibe of the song. The C-sharp blues scale, on the other hand, sounds great. We still have to be careful not to overuse the flat 5 G. But as an occasional Grace Notey spice, it works great. So he's clearly using the C-sharp blues scale, but that's just the first step. The next challenge is to craft a solo that sounds like music and not just a scale exercise. And boy, does he deliver on that. His solo contains beautiful melodic motifs, it's very well structured, and he remixes elements of the vocal melody so we really feel that it's part of the composition. The solo starts with a 2-beat pickup that sounds like this. It contains all the notes of a C-sharp minor pentatonic scale, which is the same as a C-sharp blues scale, but without the flat 5. Remember a minute ago I said that if we use the C-sharp blues scale over this progression, we have to be careful not to overuse the flat 5, the G. Well, if we leave that note out altogether, we get a C-sharp minor pentatonic scale, which works equally well in this situation. At the beginning of the next bar, he lands on F sharp, the root of the chord that's happening at that moment. And he also plays the full chord in his left hand. Now check out this beautiful symmetry here. He plays F sharp at the beginning of this first proper bar of the solo and also at the beginning of bar 2. Then he plays E in bar 3, where the progression moves to, well, E, and at the start of bar 4. And then he does the same thing in the second half of the solo. At the beginning of every single bar, he plays the root of the underlying harmony, often with a longer rhythmic duration than most other notes in the solo. With this simple trick, he reinforces the underlying harmonic progression. Subtle, but very effective. Next, he plays this 4-note motif 3 times in a row. The notes are C sharp, E, F sharp and G sharp. It kind of looks like a C sharp minor triad with an F sharp added. Remember these 4 notes because we'll encounter them again in a bit. Notice also that that motif is the equivalent of 3 eighth notes in length. So playing it back to back against the 4/4 time signature creates this interesting cross rhythm. The second bar of this first F sharp minor section concludes with another C sharp minor pentatonic lick. Notice also that he plays the first 2 bars of the solo in unison with both hands 2 octaves apart. Well, almost. A couple of notes are different in the left hand, but to me it sounds like that wasn't intentional. He was just a little bit sloppy there. After this, the chord progression moves to an E major chord for 2 bars. As already mentioned, he plays a very strong E on beat 1 to accentuate that harmonic move. Next, he plays this blues run that includes a bunch of double stops and grace notes. There's some straight up Floyd Kramer country piano stuff in there. Notice that he drops the left hand doubling in this bar. It's right hand only. In the second half of bar 4, he plays another pickup line into the second half of the solo. And like in the pickup at the beginning of the solo, he once again uses the notes of a C sharp minor pentatonic scale. In bar 4, he starts to double the right hand with his left hand again. Notice also how he uses the exact same notes that the vocal melody starts with going into the verse. Here's the beginning of the vocal melody in the verse. And here's the beginning of his lick. Same notes. In bar 5, he once again plays a melody that seems to outline a C sharp minor chord with a 4th added, while still emphasizing the note F sharp at important rhythmic positions. In the next bar, he plays a lick that's clearly derived from a C sharp blues scale. So again, in the 2 bars I just talked about, bars 5 and 6 of the solo, the underlying chord is F sharp minor, but what he plays looks more like it's based on C sharp. First a C sharp minor triad shape with an added 4th, and then a C sharp blues scale. In bar 7, he plays another country-flavored blues run that's similar in character to the one in bar 3. This time he keeps the left hand going, but in a simplified way. He drops the double stops and some of the chromatic passing tones. And that's it for today. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love.